Please note that each human being is unique. For further understanding of the subject matter, please be advised to consult your preferred healthcare professional. And this week we're taking a look at counter-dependency, which from what I checked out is said to be the opposite of codependency. Last week we were taking a look at codependency. In codependency, in that way, we're taking a look at it where a person finds themselves, or the therapist discovers that this person that they are, helping through their journey in whatever it is they're dealing with, are becoming a bit codependent on the therapy sessions. And we had a look at that. And this week, we're taking a look at counter-dependency. Letsha, they say, is the opposite of codependency. What really is counter-dependency?
Right, so I'm not too sure whether it's the opposite of codependency. I would rather think of them within the same spectrum, just at different points. They are very related in that it's the unnatural bonding or creating relationships in a very anxious kind of state of mind. That's the thing that they have in common. A codependent and a counter-dependent relationships and intimacy makes them very anxious. They just respond to them in different ways. Where a codependent wants to get closer, a counter-dependent wants to push somebody away. So, so that's what primarily makes up counter-dependency, the fear of intimacy. And this is usually deeply connected with one's childhood, how they were introduced to the idea of love. Usually a counter-dependent was raised by a parent who was very, very smothering and therefore did not allow the child to fully express themselves, didn't allow the child to really be themselves. Rather, they were treated as an extension of the parent. And now, or even maybe when they were young also, they had this urge to really push back and reject what the smothering caregivers was doing to them. So that rebellious kind of thinking is still persisting even in adulthood and in their adult relationships, that when they feel as if somebody is drawing close to them, they want to push them away. They want to sometimes even punish them for having the audacity, which is the kind of thinking that they have. They think that when somebody draws close to them, they're showing some kind of audacity that they want to be close to them. They want to bring them love, and that kind of triggers the first memories of what it was like. That the first time that they were introduced to the idea of love, they had to completely sacrifice their identity. So they run from it because of that fear.
Everything seems to be heavily linked to childhood, in terms of the things that we do get to discuss. I also want to, smothering in this sense is where a parent is overprotective, so that, it's for a person who may not be familiar with the term.
Not just overprotective, but having no sense of boundaries with the child, continuously imposing their own thoughts, their likes, their beliefs, what they want to do, what they believe should happen onto the child. The child is not given the freedom to express themselves, to also contribute from a place of authenticity. And what that does is that the child then associates that kind of feeling with love. So when they think of love, they think of being shackled, they think of being held back, they think of being suffocated, really. And that's the kind of thing that they view as overwhelming, and that's why they try as much as possible to get away from love. Now, this isn't to say that a counter-dependent cannot develop feelings for another person or doesn't, to some degree, fall in love as well. They do. It's just when they realize it, they kind of create that pushback in the relationship with the person. That can sometimes manifest into trauma bonds, but that's a different topic completely. So a counter-dependent will usually, in fact, in the very early stages of a relationship, kind of invite another person to become close to them. And this is usually because really that's what they want. That's really what they desire. But when another person starts to show them interest back, then it's like somebody is presenting that sentence to them that they're really trying to run away from. Now they view this person as trying to hold them back, as trying to suffocate them, as trying to, take away those flashbacks of the initial encounter start to come back, and that then influences the relationship completely, where they start to try and run away from it. And you spoke about why it seems like most of the time when we speak about these things, we refer to childhood. That's because we must realize that when we're young, we have a stage that we go through called our formative stage, right? And this is the time where our brains are developing. This is also the time where we are developing our concept of the world. Our brains are developing. And that means that during these years, our brains are very plastic. That means that it's easier to learn things. It's easier to absorb things. And usually the patterns that we exhibit in adulthood are things that were formed when we were younger. If we do not break the pattern by the time we turn about 25 years old, you find that these things solidify and we become this perception that we have. This isn't to say, however, that these things can't be reversed. With the right amount of therapy, with intentionality, with courage, with the will to be vulnerable, these things can be reversed. You can unlearn certain things that you learned in childhood, because inevitably human beings are creatures, are social creatures. We do want connection. We do want to bond with other human beings. We just need to sometimes get over the perceptions that we've had. So that requires a deep process of unlearning, which is possible.
Yeah. When you're describing counter-dependency, I take it for a person listening in, because, we always hear these things where, listening in, you can easily mistaken counter-dependency for, let's say, especially when it comes to relationships, people who are said to be a tease, like, okay, you initiated the first point of contact, then, you are teasing around. There's just so much that can be what's the word that I'm looking for? There's just so much linkage that one may sit there and they think maybe I'm counter dependent, and I take it this is where now therapy helps in a person getting to understand, or no, that's something else. This is actually what this is.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that we have kind of glamorized a lot of personality disorders and dysfunctional behavior in general. And what I mean by this is that we see people displaying dysfunctional behavior, displaying personality disorders, and we kind of call it a game. We kind of think that it's a little game that they play when they get into relationships. But what we are nullifying is that these things are kind of real. The fact that somebody's behaving in that manner usually is a symptom of something deeper underlying. And therefore, it's about time that we uncover the true motivation behind these dysfunctional behaviors if we really want to get to a point where we are enjoying healthy relationships.
Mm-hmm. Wow. For a person listening in and would want to or maybe before that one, is there anything that you would like to add in relation to an counter-dependency?
Well, just that if you are noticing these signs in yourself or somebody, first, it's twofold. If you're noticing these signs in yourself, it's very important to go out there, reach out, get help, because this pattern can continue. And what will happen is that you actually will get successful in pushing everybody away, everybody who genuinely cares about you away. And what that does is that it leads you into a space of loneliness that eventually turns into depression. And, then you start asking yourself questions like, why don't people want to be around me? But that's exactly what you were going for. You actually were successful in pushing them away. That's one. Two, if you find that you're dealing with somebody like that, you're in a relationship with somebody like that, I think it's very important to empower yourself with the knowledge, the truth rather, that there's very little that you can do for this person from the outside. That if they're going to change, it is going to be something that they decide by themselves. And they also have to go through that process with courage, with a willingness to be vulnerable. And remember that this person is actually afraid of vulnerability. So it might take lots of effort, lots of time for them to come around to actually doing the work. But it is possible. The point here is that it won't be you doing it for them. They have to decide for themselves.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you find that as human beings, this thing of giving people time is one thing that we actually don't have time for. But yeah, that's what we had for you this week. So for a person who would want to get further understanding on this, where can they find you?
You can find me on social media, on LinkedIn and on Facebook at Letsha Kgotla. Alternatively, you can give me a call on my cell phone number on 72383085.
Love's Lounge.